This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. So I'm going to catch the audience up. You graduate, you did a theater, classical music major at Duke Ellington, then Tisch, UCLA, UCB, Yale. Like you just went and checked them all off, start to finish. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, she's just going to keep going. Oh, she's going to keep going. I'm so curious. Obviously, this was the game plan, right? Acting was the game plan. From what fundamental age where you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to follow this track to ensure it?
Yeah. I was 5 when I did my first performance. It was like, Mommy, I love this. I'm meant for this. But and bless God, I had a mom who was so supportive of me being in the arts. And so she did everything that she could to make sure that I was able to go to voice lessons and dance class and gymnastics and creative writing and choral singing and all these different things, ballet, right? And so by the time I went to high school, I decided on musical theater as well as drama. So it was dance, music, voice, theater. And then we traveled all over the country as teenagers, actually all over the world as teenagers. And it was just Duke Ellington provided us a wonderful experience to travel the world and perform. But that point of being 16, 17 and deciding, oh my gosh, what's my life going to be? The stakes are so high. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to go to college for? Am I going to keep going on this path or do something real with
That
my life?
fallback plan that everybody tries to
Right.
say.
And
Yeah.
my family was split. It's one half of my family was like, live your dream, be an artist. And the other half is like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an investment
Mhm.
banker, do something where you'll actually have a job to fall back on. And I prayed. I was 16 years old and I prayed. And I said, God, I need your guidance. I don't know what my life is going to become. I don't know what steps to take. Should I go into acting? Is that what I'm being called to? And I just remember hearing this deep voice in my spirit saying, I'm being called into the entertainment industry. And that's what started it. So then I went to New York and went to school for the arts. And it's just been a ride ever since.
Okay. I'm also going to let the audience know. I think prayers are answered when your first credit is the second season of the hottest show around, you landing on the wire. So, do you end up getting representation that comes and sees you at Tisch? Walk me through that yellow brick road because that's a prayer answered. If you're like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing, and then you get a recur. Also, let me notice that it's a recurring. Was it meant to be a recurring? I want to know all of this. I want to know all the tea.
Listen, I love actors, okay? Like being an actor, we speak a similar language, so I'm happy to break it all down. So when I was in I think it was my junior year of college at NYU, I just it was just all about preparing for the real world. What's this going to be? It's already scary enough living in New York City by yourself, but then I got to pay for everything. I'm not going to have housing. What is this world going to be? And so I remember getting this book called the New York Agent Book and by Kay Callan. And I just combed through that whole thing and started just learning the ins and outs of the business and what does that look like and getting an agent and what kind of agents are there. And then going into my senior year, like I found out that, oh, you can audition for an industry showcase. And so I did that. I did the theater musical, I did the theater showcase, I did the musical theater showcase, sang, did all the things. I was like, I'm getting an agent. Okay. I was just very determined. And then I set my sight on specific people and researched them and followed up with them and just had a whole kind of action plan as far as my career. And that's what, 19, 20 years old. But I was just really intentional during the summers. While I was in school, I would intern at the Joseph Papp Public Theater and Shakespeare in the Park. And so that's how I ended up also working with a lot of just great people in the industry by interning. And that opened a lot of doors. So by the time I came out of college, I had an agent because of the showcase. But it was still like, okay, I need a side job. I need something to be able to do while I'm pursuing my dream. And I got a side job with a psychologist named Dr. Alan Goodwin. And we did these stress management workshops all over New York City. And so that was my like day job, so to speak. And it was flexible enough, though, where I could audition and prepare for roles. But in the midst of doing that job, this side job, and then bringing, meanwhile, all of NYU with me because I was like, you need a job, you need a job, you're an artist, you're an artist, you're an artist. Come on, I know a psychologist that will hire all of us. So I
Yeah.
like staffed his whole company with artists, and we were doing these workshops. And I'm telling you, it was changing people's lives and it was changing my life. And very soon after working with him, he said, you know what? Just create your own curriculum. What do you want to see? What do you want to teach about? And I said, I want to teach about vision and purpose and goal setting and manifestation. And he's like, okay. And so that's why I started creating all these workshops. And fast forward to now, I have a book coming out that's about all of that. The world is waiting for you. So that all started as what I thought was a side job. And so now I tell other actors, I always say, if you can find a side job that somehow brings out an element of your calling and your purpose or your gifts, you may not always know that's what it's doing. I didn't know that until the activity of it. And I realized, oh, wow, this is blessing them and it's blessing me. And that helped me to know that this is another aspect of my calling, that our whole entire lives don't have to be just about, is someone hiring you to do a show today? Is somebody hiring you to do the show tomorrow? Are you employed? Or are you not employed? Our purpose is a lot bigger than that in this world. And so for me, that was a part of my process of discovering it.
I think of all side jobs that I've heard in the 700 plus episodes that I've done, I don't think that there is one more beneficial to sustain a spiritual career, which I think acting is one of the most spiritual careers you can do. You have to work on yourself constantly. You have to keep yourself checked. You have to be so in aligned mentally, physically, holistically in order to be of service to the story. And I know people might they're going to get, I love getting all woo woo, but and I don't even call it woo woo. We are energy. So if we can manage our own energy, we can affect somebody else's energy. So if I know you've got a book coming out and we're going to get to it, but what are some of this for stress management? So many actors write in for this, that pressuresome situation right before you're signing your first deal, right? For that first test, the nerves that come in, the first time going back into a room, the first time auditioning for Scorsese. I don't care what it is. It's hard to manage your own nervous system to be able to be of service. So what were some of the tools early on? Because it worked. It worked. This resume, it works and you've been working it. Whatever you're willing to share, especially in the beginning, that
Yeah.
clicked off for the wire. Was that a manifestation point, especially in New York? Because everybody gets that Law and Order. Everybody's got to get that Law and Order credit first, and then it gets the ball rolling. Very rarely is an actor coming out getting the hottest show around. The Wire, The Sopranos, maybe the two hottest shows of that time that you could have snagged. So was that?
Definitely a behind the scenes story. So I started doing theater. So right out of college, I'm doing this side job, and then the first few jobs that I got were theater, right? So at the Kennedy Center, Shakespeare Theater. So I ended up doing 3 shows back to back at the Shakespeare Theater in DC. And there was one day where I was in the green room in between shows, and a guy that I knew from theater, like when I was 12 years old, surprised me, came down to the green room, and he's like, do you know that there's a play that the studio theater is doing? And I think there's a role in there that you'd be right for. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, the role of the daughter, da, 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 you'd be great. So I literally, in between shows the next day, in the rain, on the bus, decided that I was going to crash that audition. I called, nobody answered. I'm like, how do I get in this audition? I'm like 21 years old. I'm like, listen, they're going to see me today, right? I get on the bus, get to the audition. It's just packed with people. And so I go straight to the front, and they're like, what's your name? I'm like, I'm Edwina Findley. And they said, we don't have your name on the list. I'm like, I'm the writing candidate. Because at that point in DC, like there was this whole political thing going on, and somebody was running for office and their name wasn't on it. And everything was about the writing candidate. I said, I'm the writing candidate. So they chuckled. They're like, okay, fine. Are you here for the role of Angel? I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Uh-huh. So they hand me the sides. I'm sitting down on the floor, Indian style, preparing for this role that I don't even know exactly what I'm going into. I just know I heard that there was a role that I was right for. So I'm like trying to prepare this scene, and this other young guy just comes and sits Indian style next to me. He's like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Edwina." He said, I'm Brandon." I'm like, "Hi, Brandon." He said, "Have you ever heard of a show called The Wire?" I was like, "I've heard of it. Yeah, it's like a big show." He said, "Yeah, I'm on that show." I was like, "Really? You're on that show?" He said, "Yeah, and I think you should audition for it." And I was like, "How? What do I do? How do I audition for it?" He said, "I'm going to give you the address to the casting director and you send her your headshot and your resume." I was like, "Okay." And so literally fast forward, he and I end up being cast in this show as brother and sister. He lets me know exactly who to contact for the casting director for The Wire. And me just being young, I'm like, okay. I send them my stuff, don't hear anything. In the meantime, the actress that is playing our mom, Rosalind Coleman Williams, bless her, in New York, she said, "I've been commissioned by Viola Davis and her husband, Julius Tennant, to write a show for them, and I'm having a hard time. Will you help me?" I said,
What?
"Sure, I'll help you." And I end up taking it all and just recreating the whole thing. And then I give it back to her, like, "Here it is." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't take the credit for this. I have to tell them that there's this young woman in DC that I'm doing this play with that wrote this." And she gave it to them, introduced us, and they said, "If you're ever in LA, we would love to host you. We'd love to have you over. Thank you so much for doing this." Anyway, fast forward, me coming to Hollywood, I lived with them, and now she's written the
You
foreword.
did the forward for your book.
And it just created all of those things. So that period of just coming out of school, it was like all these seeds were planted, but there were definitely these manifestation moments of being in the right place at the right time. It was like guided, right? Like it was definitely a guided path.
I'm glad I told you off mic that I was like, oh, we don't do the video component of this, or we used to not do it. I'm glad so people can see the shock on my face because those are like fertilizing ground that, again, only I think spirit or God, like when you are in the right space. I'm in an interesting situation for a woman to see your talent, not steal your talent, put light on you, allow you to shine and not feel threatened by that is immense, immense in this world that she was able to foster your writing to allow you to follow the yellow brick road. And that I always ask, what's that one audition? That whole story kind of feels that way, but you swing so effortlessly between drama and comedy, and you being the manifestation queen that I am getting to know now, was that the goal? Or what's the next audition where you're like, okay, because you do The Wire, that's drama. Then we get to do Treme. You've got a lot of like other great one-offs in there, great recurs. But then you all of a sudden step into this space of comedy. And I want to know if that was like, you know what? I need to diversify. Or what's that one audition where you're like, Rim, I can do comedy too, because we can be put in a box.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you're training in theater or drama, however you want to call it, I don't think you're thinking about what genre it is or if it's comedy or if it's drama, right?
Oh, the industry
Just
usually does that to you,
exploring,
right?
yeah, the
Yeah, it's not
industry.
your training. You can do anything. I'm going to play an
Oh,
80-year-old woman today. Great.
exactly.
I got all
Look,
the skills.
this right here, this poster right here, my character went from age 8 to 80. It's called G's Bend, and I ended up receiving a nomination for it. It was like my goal, honestly, was to tell stories that I don't know, that ignited some part of me that I felt like I could go on an adventure. And whether that was like Cyrano or Winter's Tale or singing in Welsh and Henry the Fourth or whatever, if it was that, or if it was this play set in Liberia during the Civil War there, or whether it was comedy, right? Like some kind of
Mhm.
like just fun comedy. There's something about like just the variety of
Yes.
the stories that always really intrigued me and excited me. And so it was literally, you all know, as actors, a lot of times we just go where the audition is. Okay, it's a comedy audition. Okay, it's a drama. Okay, it's a guest star. Okay, it's a recurring. Okay, it's a series break. It's okay, where's the opportunity? So for me at that time, it really wasn't like, I think Veep came along right before Get Hard. It wasn't like, okay, team, I'm just letting you know
Right.
I'm only going to be doing comedies from now on. It was just like this audition came up and I thought it was freaking hilarious when I read it. And I'm like, yeah, I see her. I know her. I can play her. And then that just opening the door to another comedy. But in between, there was some very deep dramas, there's this one independent film that I did called Free Indeed that was probably the most emotionally heart-wrenching experience for me in terms of a role. I my only goal was to tell the truth. It was based on a true story, and my main goal was to tell the truth. And I asked God to just protect me and protect my heart while I go there emotionally. And
Well,
this is right in between. This is
Get
after
Hard and
part.
yeah, because I literally have it tagged for 2015. I'm like, what happened in 2015 with her
It was
work
like
life?
a lot.
We got Veep, we got Get Hard, and then Free Indeed. And I wanted to ask about that audition because that film, I can barely talk about it without getting so emotional. Sorry, but it rocks you to a different place. I didn't know if that was an offer, what the auditioning material looked like. That was an offer.
That was an offer
What did
that came in between these comedies, this intense drama. And let me tell you, during that time, personally, because you're tearing up, right? And when I read that script, I was tearing up. And to be honest, it felt very close to home because at that time, my mother had just been diagnosed with cancer.
Oh God.
And that's another thing that happened too, like with Treme. With Treme, when we were doing it, Clark Peters, who played my dad, by the fourth season, he was diagnosed with cancer and went through this whole journey. And as his daughter, I'm like trying to help him through this journey in the character. And then in my real life, it happens. And my mom is diagnosed with cancer. And suddenly, all these benchmarks that my character went on, then suddenly it's happening in my real life. And at that point, I became afraid. I was like, oh God, if I step into these roles, does that invite these things to happen in my real life? And I really was very afraid. I was very afraid. In fact, I almost didn't do Free Indeed. And I prayed. And I honestly, maybe actor David Oyelowo, who has just been a real wonderful spiritual force in my life. And I called him. I said, I have this offer and I love this script, but also it's a painful journey. And I'm already going through enough in my own life. And we prayed together and he said, I just feel like God is saying to do it. And so it took a lot of courage to do it. I had no idea that we'd end up getting best film at Venice and that
Independent Spirit Award.
Independent Spirit Award, we got four Independent Spirit Award nominations. I received a nomination as Best Supporting Actress. And it just ended up being like this global adventure that I did not see coming. Like the whole goal was just to be used to tell the honesty of this story to the best of my ability and as deep as I can go, like just surrendering myself to that experience. So it's funny, a lot of times actors, I think, can work for the acclaim or work for the validation or work for the red carpet moments and all these things. But I feel like that's one thing I learned from Viola early on was when you just put your heart into the work, these other things will find you.
That's always what it is. And don't you always find too, I'm sure this was more early on in your career, the ones that you were like, oh, this is going to move the needle. Oh, this is going to be something. It's never shit. And then the ones you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I should do this. I don't know. I'm too busy. I'm being a mom over here. And then you're like, wait, what ride are we going on right now? How is this happening?
I woke up with a newborn baby in my arm. I was fast asleep with my baby in my arms, like in total mom mode. And then I was getting phone calls like, you've been nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. I'm like, really?
Really?
What? For what?
For what? I was going to say.
I'm like, Really? They're like, yeah, the New York Times wants to talk to you right now. I'm like, really? I'm like breastfeeding and just in such a different head. But it's just funny how a lot of times, and I'm speaking from personal experience, A lot of times we feel like, okay, if we don't press, if we don't push, if we don't try to make things happen in all these different ways, then it's just not going to happen. But it's sometimes it just requires trust of I'm going to plant the seed and leave it there. And then it will be watered, and then it will receive sunlight, and then it will grow. And you may not be a part of all the stages of that
Well,
happening, but then you see the harvest is like, wow, you planted that special seed that burst up into a harvest that you may not even seen coming.
I think that's one of the things that I like most about doing this show is as an actor myself, getting to connect the dots with another actor and not knowing, oh, my path was going here, or I didn't get this, but then man, it opened up this path. And if I got this, I wouldn't have been able to do this over here or be of service here. It's all retrospect where we can connect the dots. I'm going to be remiss because I always ask about process, specifically on Free in the Deed, because you said you had personal stuff going on. You are so well skilled, you're so well educated in this craft. If you'd be willing to let us into your process a little bit, I'd be curious, other than reading the script, how did you prepare for this role? Because also, when we get offers, it's different than auditioning where you're like, here's what I'm going to do. And they're like, yep, we want that. And we're going to put that in a story. So day one sometimes feels like an audition, sometimes. But going that deep and being of such service, allowing your own body to get out of the way, your own line of what's going on emotionally to get out of the way. What was some of the process that you were using to get into that character? It was Melva, right? Is that how you said?
For me, a lot of times I start with research, especially if a character feels like a great distance from me, if it doesn't feel like me in my normal, regular life. There's aspects of it that I'm curious about. Like I start out with curiosity. And so with her, I remember that there were articles, like I started searching for, because it was a true story. So I started searching for these articles. And one thing that really spoke to me was the fact that even though her son passed, spoiler alert, the interviews were all interviewing the dad. There was no trace of her. And I'm like, okay, how's this possible? She's a single mom who has raised this child, and this tragedy has happened. How is it that the father is the only person's voice that I see? So I just flagged that. Like that was my first little indicator of character. What place must she be in that she cannot speak about her son's passing? And so I researched the culture of these storefront churches. I researched the
Mm.
culture of autism because at that time I did not know much at all about autism. And so what was that and what does that look like and what are the different ways that's expressed in children? And then also her socioeconomic status, right? And as actors, we also fill in the dots, right? Things that aren't explicitly on the page. We start out, or at least I start out with the given circumstances. What are all the given circumstances? Where is she from? How old is she? How many children does she have? What's her backstory as far as romantic relationships? Just figuring out all these things and then starting to piece it together and then finding the holes and the gaps and the questions and then for me, then it moves from like the research piece and the explicit information, the implicit information to like beginning to formulate backstory, fill in the gaps, and then character, right? And then when you start talking about character, you're talking about the emotional life of this person, as well as the physical life of this person, the aesthetics of this person, right? Like all of these things are traveling through a life. And a lot of times I try to approach roles with the same honor, whether it's based on a true story or not. I always try to approach it as though it's a true story, as though each character really exists because I want to honor them. And I think that's the reason why I start with so much research because especially if it's a culture that I may not be from or may not understand, I want to honor them, right? And honor their experience. And then of course it gets to that place of personalization, right? And as ifs and all these things. And so for me emotionally, that was the part that I was afraid of. That was the part that I really had I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go there as far as personalization. But in order to tell the truth and in order to create a powerful performance, you have to allow you have to allow yourself in, right? And I think
Yes.
early on, As an early actor, I just thought, okay, it's about creating a character, right? And that character can be a great distance from you. Now I realize less, you're still crafting and creating a character, but you have to somehow figure out how to bring that character right here, so close that it can be anybody. And that's, I think, what makes our art form so human.
Absolutely. But again, I think sometimes going through really emotional things in our day to day, you do all this beautiful research, right? And you really embody, and then you show up on the day. On those really emotional days, what was your prep in the morning? Or are you able to communicate with the director? Or what is it that you're able to allow yourself to be open to
Yeah.
have that come through you?
Yeah. One thing I also did during that time was I worked with an acting coach whose name is Eden Bernardi, who,
Yes.
you know who Eden Bernardi is?
Been mentioned a couple times on here. I love when I hear repetitive names. Yes.
So Eden unfortunately has since passed away. And she also ended up with a cancer diagnosis. But she really helped me because she knew what was happening in my personal life and she also knew what I was being called to do as far
Mhm.
as this role. And so it was almost like she was a part of my village as far as holding my heart while going off and doing this. And so for me, I think emotional roles can be tough in the sense that with film and television, you can be in the trailer and you can be in hair and makeup and you can be a wardrobe, like so many other things that are going on before the cameras start rolling. And
Right.
so it's like, at what point do you allow yourself to get filled up? Because once you get filled up, you need somewhere to place it.
Hmm.
You have to let it out. And so it's hard, not hard. I feel as an actor that it's extremely hard to have to hold this, knowing that this is the work you have to do today, but also getting
Yes.
hair, makeup, and wardrobe, and blah, 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 and people talking to you and all these different things. And so one technique that I use is music. And for many characters, I will create a playlist for the character. But now I realize there's certain songs that I can't play that until we're actually ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yes. So we don't empty the well at the
Right.
wrong time.
Either I
Yes.
can't, or even I started singing too. Like I started realizing that even just the vibration of my own voice expressing certain things, that started to bring up certain emotional recall and memories and things like that. And so I realized though, just over the course of doing this for some time, that you want to choose when, right? Like when you're going to go there, when you're going to. And with Free Indeed, a lot of the process depended upon what scenes we were doing that day. For me, sometimes I'll just go through one of my techniques is to endow the set with certain significance, right? With some kind of personal, historic significance.
Emotional. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
emotional, some kind of emotional connection to the thing. So when I see that clock, that the art director put in there that who knows may have come from Goodwill, but now I'm creating a history
Yeah.
for myself and for this character of that clock. That was the clock that I saw when my father was slipping away. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. And
Charging.
so, yeah, so like charging the environment with different things. And I find that with that, also with different other actors, right? Like I'm the type of person where if I'm just coming into a project and maybe a person's supposed to be my lover or a person's supposed to be my daughter or a person's supposed to be my mom, I will want to naturally get to know them right away. And do you want to have dinner? You want to have lunch? You
Yeah.
want to have... But I had to finally realize that everybody's not like that. Like some people are like, I'm busy. I don't have
Right.
time.
They
I
have a
don't...
different process.
Right,
Yeah.
that they have a different process. And so with the people that I'm able to connect with before we go on this intimate journey, the people that are open to that, I always want to do that because I always want to find some kind of heart connection, even if it's in 5 minutes. Like when I did Get Hard, right before I flew down to New Orleans to do Get Hard, I watched this Oprah interview and Kevin Hart was being interviewed. And I knew, like most of America, like he's funny, he's hilarious, he's this, he's that. But in this article, I mean, in this interview with Oprah, he was talking about his mom. And he talked about how his mother had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and passed away from it. And he talked about this Bible that his mom gave him. And I said, wow. And I felt the connection because at that time, my mom had ovarian cancer. She had been
Mm.
diagnosed. And so when I got to the set to meet him, and now we're supposed to be husband and wife immediately, right? I approached him by talking about this very intimate shared experience. And that I felt really opened the door as far as developing a heart connection with someone that you may have never met, right?
Yes. Acting's just that connection through the ethers, and however we get there, I always find it so fascinating to see how we all get there in such a short amount of time. Sometimes we have 24 hours to turn around and produce this. If you have more time, what a luxury. To full circle this, Free Indeed and some other great roles that you've had, like you said, incredibly challenging. Okay, now we talked about the technique and process to get into that. Not enough actors, I think, talk about the recovery process. Did you have a recovery process day in and day out to go to that you were in your acting coach or even you? Listen, you started with psychology and you started with stress management. So I'm sure you have the tools. What are your tools so that people don't lose themselves
Yeah.
in?
That was actually a part of one of the things that Eden encouraged me to do. She said, there's power in ritual and in basically saying goodbye to the day or saying goodbye to the character for this day or just releasing it, being intentional about releasing it. And that's hard too, especially when you're filming out of town and you have many more days to go and you know
Mhm.
that it requires the depth of yourself each day. It's one of those things like, should I let go? Should I say goodbye tonight? Or should I hold on because that's going to fuel me for tomorrow? And so I find myself as an actor sometimes in those places. But with this, I knew that self-care was going to be really important as far as Free Indeed. And so, yeah, each night, I feel like with me, with character, sometimes it's aesthetic, right? Sometimes it's taking off a wig, or sometimes
Yes.
it's taking off the lashes, or just the wardrobe for that day, or combing my own hair, or putting on music, or saying a prayer and getting ready, or taking a bath and just clearing the air. I'll even
Yes.
do things like, and sometimes I'll buy them as wrap gifts for other actors, like pillow sprays and candles and things like that, where it's, you know what, I'm going to spray this scent on this pillow and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to inhale it and I'm going to have a good night's sleep and I'm going to recover from all of what I did that day and also honor what I did that day.
Yes.
And like, I feel like, I don't know if I'm the only one. I definitely don't feel like I honor myself enough or honor like what it takes to do some of this. And I feel as actors, whether it's the hustle of it, whether it's the grind of it, whether
Mhm.
it's the intensity of the actual execution of acting, whatever it is, like this is not an easy business to be a part of. A lot of times we don't give ourselves the grace to say, you know what? Because I think there's also a performative aspect of it
Yeah.
that we feel like we always have to prove ourselves, right? Like it's kind of
Yes.
that way, auditions or this or that or meetings or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you can have a life that feels like you always, or social media, or there's so many things that are part of a red carpet. What do you have on? Is your hair right?
Mhm.
Is your makeup right? Is your this? What shoes do you have on? And the camera can just zoom in on every part of you, and then people can break it down. Then we've got critics, and then we've got press, and we've got all these things and so I don't think, I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's like
I
revelatory for me, but I realized, you know what? It's not always set up for us to love and value ourselves and tell ourselves, you know what? You did a good job right there. You did
ugh,
a good job hosting that podcast. You have been used as a vessel for thousands of other actors to bring people in and share their stories and enrich and nourish a whole community of artists. Good job. You know, we don't necessarily gift ourselves with that enough. So as we're talking about it, I'm like, you know what? That has to be
yes.
a part of the process.
Absolutely. I think there's so many times where it's like you get close, right? You do 12 auditions for something and you don't get it. There's so much of the recovery process we don't talk about, and that's part of this holistic training in places that I like to go to where you can talk to. I've talked to people that have been in really pressuresome situations and they've gone into labor because of it. Our bodies don't know anything different, right? As if we're doing our jobs in a really good way. Our bodies are experiencing that. So then how do we honor our bodies afterwards so they can be of service the next day or in 12 months or 6 months or whatever it might be? So I always love hearing just little tidbits of that.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
Okay, the residents. I have to talk. Okay. Edwina, did you audition for this or did you get offered? Because this was a hit one around town. It called the Falcon. I had friends going in. I went in. People are like, what is this material? What is the tone? What are we working with? Did you audition?
I auditioned.
Did you do it as a tape?
I did it as a tape.
I need to know from the moment you read Sheila, and I've seen some interviews where you knew the comedy right there. I also feel like Sheila is one of the best things of this whole entire season, where some people are a little bit more straight tonally. Like it works better if they're straight. You need to know when you're the other girl. You need to know when you're the Sheila. I mean, your nails.
I love that you're giving a whole.
I mean, it gave me joy. Are you kidding? Eating the chips and being inaudible. That episode 4 just gave me everything. Everything. I was like, oh, who is this actress eating this up outside with her cigarette? I have some great Sheila questions, but first I want to know the audition process because it was a hot ticket. Because was it during the strikes or right after?
No,
it was before the strikes, right? It was before the strikes. Let's hear this audition story and how you concocted this, Sheila.
It's funny because I had this whole manifestation story before that.
I knew it. What is it?
April 1st, 2022. I was like, what should I do for April 1st? And I was talking with a woman who was helping with my social media, and we just came up with this idea of putting my face, like photoshopping my face into a Shondaland poster and announcing my new role in this Shondaland show. And literally, you can see the Getty Images sign on the, like, it was hilarious to me. But when people started pouring in, congratulations, look at God, this is amazing. God is so good. I was like, it was something about their sheer faith and confidence that this is true that gave me the faith of, could this be true? Could I believe on this level? For something that they thought was just so effortless. They didn't question it at all.
Of course. I wouldn't question it either. If I'm just watching, this is tangent. Who did your reel? Did Mark at LA Media Works do your reel? Do you know who did your reel? It's on IMDb.
The Sheila reel or my regular reel? My regular reel was Nathan. What's Nathan's last name? I was just emailing.
It might be a Sheila reel, but whatever is on IMDb. I love Mark. He's done my reels in the back, and I watched this reel, and I was like, just give me the
Sheila reel is Dana Bergwall. She's fantastic.
Good. Always good to Mark.
And Nathan, I'll find his last name. I just emailed with him today. He does my regular reels, like with all the characters and stuff.
Seeing that, I'm like, of course Sheila would be shoo-in for you, seeing this reel jump from different characters and just, we were waiting for this to come out of you. Like it was already engine. Okay, so you post this on social media. How long until you get this audition from Shondaland?
His name, Nathan Sanderson. So that was April. By, I want to say maybe it was September. I got in 1 week, I received 3 auditions. And it was either September or October. I received 3 auditions. And of course, they all wanted tomorrow. Everybody wants it fast. But one of the things I've learned, and I actually learned it from my husband, He said, just because they ask for something and because they tell you that's what they need, you also have to take into consideration what you need and what you can do and how to put your best foot forward. And I felt as an actor, because he's not from an acting background, he's more from a corporate background. So he was schooling me. And I was like, wow, as an actor, we're just used to jumping over hoops. When do you want it? Tonight? You want it tomorrow? You want it in an hour? Okay, I'll be there. I'll do it. And then when you have multiple auditions, you didn't end up spreading yourself thin.
Yeah.
So one technique that I've learned is read it all as fast as you can and start to prioritize. So I read one, it was like, okay, this is good. Okay. Read the other. Okay. Then the third one was Sheila. I was like, stop the press. Wait, stop. Stop the press. Who is she? Who is this? What is this? I emailed my team right away. I was like, this right here, I love this. I want to play her. Oh my God. I was just so excited. And so I asked for different delivery dates for these roles because I wanted to spend time with her. So I don't know if they wanted it Friday. I think I may have said, can I give it to them on Tuesday? And then the answer back was like, yes. And so I just prioritized, got those other ones out the way. And I'm like, okay, it's Sheila World. Let's go. Let's go.
Which audition scenes did you have?
I had the Can I Smoke in Here? I had Nan Cox as a drinker. People probably say the same thing about me.
Yes.
Going on this whole tangent. I also had the AB, the big scene that I ended up doing with Giancarlo Esposito and first did Andre Brower. I also had that one. And so there were three very long scenes. So there was a lot of dialogue, but it was like, come on, let's go. I love her. I love this. And then after putting it on tape, I set it out into the world like, okay. But then I don't know, maybe after a few days, I'm like, just reaching out to my manager. So what'd you think? And like, I asked my husband.
Like, somebody give me feedback.
Yeah, give me feedback. And then finally he got feedback from the casting director and it was clear that they liked it. But it was just like, okay. And then eventually it was a pin. But before that, I loved it so much that I literally asked my husband, I was like, I know you will be honest with me. What do you think of this audition? And he watched it. He said, I feel like this is the best audition you've ever had.
I would love to see your audition. Your turns, your reversals, your your body language. Edwina, she needs a spinoff. What are you talking about?
You're about to God's ears. So you know what I did? That gave me the courage because I told you I'm big in research. And I found the creator's information. I found his website and everything online. And I said, maybe I should just reach out to him.
Did you?
And I did.
What'd you say?
Letter. First of all, my grandmother worked in the White, like it was all.
I mean, you're from DC. Talk about full circle.
It was so full circle. So there was just a lot of meaning in it for me. And so I wrote him an email and I was just very candid. And I told him like the feeling that I got when I read her words and when I read his writing, which was brilliant. His writing was brilliant. And then I also told him about my family history and what it meant to me and how I had such a vision of this character, this role, this story, whether they cast me or not. Like I wanted to honor him and honor this project and let him know how meaningful it was to me. And a day went by, I didn't hear anything. 2 days went by. And then finally I got this very lovely email in response. And then he said, I'd love to see your tape. I can't wait to see your tape. And he did. And I later found out that letter circulated through all of Netflix, that my videos circulated through all of Netflix. And I was the first person cast. And that's when they invited me to the interview, not interview, but meeting, when I sat with all of them. And we just talked through the whole thing. And I shared what my vision was for the show, for the character, for all of that, for these scenes. And so I was the first person cast. And then after that,
a couple decades of work. Let's also put in the decade of foundational training. Could not have been more perfectly received in Sheila. It's dynamic. Look, it was a tough show to cast. And I had read somewhere that you were cast first. I have a couple friends on the show. They were on the hook for months. This was an ongoing process, especially when it's an ensemble like this, like we were talking about earlier. Some people being like, I don't know what to do with this tonally. Sheila's a little bit more straightforward.
Right. You gotta know who she is.
It's a little bit more on the page, whereas other people could. Sometimes when it's so vanilla, a lot of pilots are, right? And you got to put your mark on it. But when you're trying to tonally figure out what this is going to be, and then it comes out, I cannot wait to see what you do next. It just is so good. Okay. Now let's get a little mentory, Edwina, for this. Okay, the world is waiting for you. Can you please talk to all of the actors right now? Look, there's the 1% that is working. There is, and even the 1%, it's like the half of the 1% working right now. So for those actors that have just gone $250,000 in debt, that are coming out and trying to start work in this business, for those that have been 4-6 series regulars deep but haven't worked in 3-4 years, what is your stress management visualization? What can you share from the book? Because I know it doesn't come out till September, which we could always hold this.
It's available for pre-order right now.
It is?
Yeah, you can go to Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble websites and order the book.
Okay, so we can pre-order this, but is the actual release date 9/9/25? What good numbers.
The whole manifestation story around.
I was just, yes.
9/9, all of this.
Did you get to pick the release date? That was going to be my question.
No, I didn't. They picked it. And I said, did you pick it because of that whole like prophetic story about the date 9/9 that's in the book? They said, no, we didn't even get to that part of the book yet. You write about the date 9/9? I said, I write about the date 9/9 in the book. They were like, no.
Anybody listening to this is going to be like, hold on, I need to read this immediately, because we are powerful. Look, as artists, we can create memories, we can create situations, we can give ourselves over to circumstances. It's really interesting to me when actors then say, I don't have a vision for what I want, or I just want to take something. So being able to take that power that we have to turn it on the desire of whether that's working, whether that's whatever it might be, whether even outside of acting, this is going to be a gorgeous book to be of service for. What can you share from the book, and what's one little nugget until we can actually have it in our hands that would help a lot of people right now?
You know what? And I'm so glad you brought that up as far as the percentage of the population that's working, because a lot of times I think actors can feel alone, or can feel, even that person that's, as you said, 4 or 5 series regulars deep, and just feel like, I've never done anything. Am I worth anything? Like, our worth and our sense of value is so often wrapped up in whether we're working or not. And then you have the people that are constantly asking you, so what are you doing?
What are you doing? You're an actor. What have you been in?
Right. What have I seen you in? I don't know what you watch. I don't know what you
like, pass the salt and shut up. Like, sometimes it's so aggravating because you're an accountant. Who did you do taxes for this past week? Nobody's asking you to prove yourself.
And yet we carry this spirit. And I don't think it all originated with us, right? The industry is just set up in that way. And I really call it soul care. And I think a lot of the book was really learning how to care for your soul and how to balance these dreams that we have. And I encourage, the second chapter is Unleash Your Vision, or the third chapter is Unleash Your Vision. And it's really about taking every limit off, every idea of what could go wrong, every obstacle you have ever faced, putting it all to the side. And for just this moment right here, I want you to fill up these pages with the highest vision you possibly that can come from you. And then know that if you can imagine it, God can do more. More. But then you go on this process of reverse engineering, right? Because we have vision and we put it into the world, but then we also have to prepare for it, right? What are the different ways in which you are actively preparing for that which you desire? But even more than that is, and as you do that, is what is your purpose? And that's what I was saying earlier on when it comes to your side job or the rest of your life, right? If you are an actor that is waiting tables and is a bartender or is working a temp job that you hate or whatever, or is walking dogs, whatever, we get real creative as far as how do we sustain ourselves financially before this big break that we're looking for. In the process of that, how are you able to bless others? Because when you bless others, that's the interesting thing. When you bless others, it will come back to you. For instance, with me in coming to Hollywood, I had a dream of Hollywood. In fact, the first chapter is from Harlem to Hollywood. I was living in low income housing, praying for my rent every day in New York, praying that I would make the rent this month. And suddenly, just this whole huge vision opened up of Hollywood and all these things. But I had no idea, how am I going to get there? I don't have money to like up and move across the country. And even if I did, I don't know anybody there. It's just all these things. I don't have a job, right? All the prohibitive things. But I allowed myself to dream. I allowed myself to open up my heart to the possibility of Hollywood, even though I have no idea how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Then one day I was literally coming home from one of my workshops and taking all my clothes off and trying to get ready for bed. And I just felt the spirit say to me to get up, get dressed, get on the bus, get on the train, and go to this Bible study that was happening in Upper Manhattan. I'm like, oh my God. By the time I do all of that, the Bible study is going to be over. But I knew, I felt this deep impression to get up and do that. And so I did. And I showed up. Sure enough, it was ending. I'm like, why am I here? I don't get it. Why did I do all this? And then there was this woman across from me. And there was just something about her. I felt led to pray for her. And I said, ma'am, can I pray for you? And she said, yes. And so I prayed for her and she cried and she grabbed my hand. She said, the things that you are praying for me are the exact things that I was asking God for revelation about. I have been toiling and so confused. And here you are giving me clarity about everything I've been praying about. I was like, wow, thank you, God, for just confirming for me why I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to be here for this woman. Wow. So we're walking to the train together. And I realized we didn't even introduce ourselves that whole time. So I said, I'm Edwina, and she says her name, and I stopped in my tracks. I said, are you a writer? And she said, yes. I said, did you write this show? She said, yes, that's my show. I'm the creator of that show. I said, you're not going to believe this. I have tried for 3 straight months to get an audition for your show. And when I tell you, tried everything. I sent a postcard, I sent a headshot, I called, I emailed, I did everything I knew to do to try to get an audition for that show for 3 straight months. Nothing happened. And then finally, I just follow this still small voice that tells me to get up, go to this Bible study. I go, end up praying over the woman who was the creator of the whole thing. She set up an audition for me, and that's the show that brought me to Hollywood.
I'm crying. These are the stories, right? These are the stories that keep you going. And I think so much of who you are is so representative of what is possible. Thank you for putting out what is possible. And also, I think when we find our power, sometimes there's the ego part of it is to keep it from somebody else. Thank you for sharing your power and that other people can figure out how to find their power, their voice, their path, their vision, their manifestation. I cannot wait for this book. I cannot wait to see what you do next. Where are we at with The Residents? Do we get another season? Do we get another Do we get more Sheila? What's up? Do we know?
We have to see. We have to see.
Okay. I'm just going to say, you're in Shondaland now. May you stay there. And Shonda, not that she's listening, but can we have a spinoff? We need one. We need one for Sheila. You're such a force and such a talent to watch. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing and giving these stories here for all of these wonderful, beautiful actors that are in various different states of finding their power. So thank you.
Listen, I have a nonprofit organization for artists. I also do a lot of just programs for artists. So if there's anybody who wants to stay connected, who wants to reach out, they can email manifestyourgoddream@gmail.com.
Manifest your God dream.
Yeah.
At,
Manifest Your God Dream. And there's also, if they go on my website, edwinafindley.com, there's a space where they can put in their information. They can ask questions, all of that. And I'm happy to respond.
yes. And then are you on Instagram? Can people follow? Yes, you are, because you did your social media post. I'm going to see what else. We have to go all see this photo.
Yeah,
That is
right?
the vision.
And literally by the next April Fool's, I was on set at Shondaland filming The Residents.
Gosh, the power of vision, the power. And also, it's not even the vision, it's the energy, like you were talking about, that helps elevate it. We can vision, and I'm sure you covered this in your book, but it's the energy around the vision that brings it to you. There is no time when you're manifesting. There is absolutely no time barrier. I love not figuring out the how. When you have a vision that gets that elevated energy around it, and then you can turn your focus into, oh, I wonder how this is going to happen.
How is this going to happen? Listen, I did a post yesterday. I was like, full out, one thing I say in the book, and I'll say is prophesy your future. Prophesy your future. Speak forth what you believe. Even if it feels outlandish, even if it feels like, oh gosh, how will that even happen? You having the courage to speak it, because I used to be afraid to speak the things that were in my heart or to put them out there. I'd be like, no, I can't put it out there because I was afraid to fail. And I talk about that in the book too. When you're afraid to fail, then a lot of times that can block your ability to manifest what the world is waiting for, which is you, right? Because you're afraid to put yourself out there. But when you do, it's really an act of prophecy. It's making a declaration in the world. This is who I am, and this is what's going to happen for me. And there's something very powerful about that type of single-mindedness, like not accepting another story. And you start to see things open up. Okay, you're bold enough to declare that.
Here you go. Yep. Go bold enough to give it to you. Oh, I needed this today. Thank you, Edwina. Thank you so much. So are you Edwina Findley on Instagram as well?
So Instagram is at Edwina Findley, and that's EDWINAFINDLEY on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, and then Edwina Findley Dickerson on Facebook.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me.